Hi, my name is Ipek Yeginsu. I'm the curator of the Web Biennial 2020 Apiro. And my guest today is the one and only Claudia Hart. She studied art history at New York University and then studied architecture at graduate level at Columbia University. She's an artist and she also used to work as an art critic, and she teaches at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. And she's one of the participating artists of the Web Biennial, and we'll be talking to her about her latest exhibition, The Ruins, plus her other works featured in the Biennial. So welcome, Claudia. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be connected to another part of the planet at the moment. Yeah, that's what's fun about this.
Yeah, and
many things are fun, but that's a particularly fun thing.
And it's actually your specialty, just bringing spaces and time layers together, right? So,
I think you mentioned, although I'm way older than someone who it should matter about their education, right? Because I think I graduated from graduate school in the late 70s, but I think it still informs my practice a lot, both of those educations. And I think it's sort of, and although the architecture background is perhaps not so unusual for people who are digital media artists, the art history part is.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I think I bring that to my practice, both pedagogic and as an artist. And this project that we're going to talk about, the most recent one, brings that into the forefront in a very powerful way, more than7perhaps I have. Well, maybe when I first started my practice, it was more present. And then I started working with VR. So that I fell in love with this medium and went directly from having an intermediate practice, which at that point meant Super 8 movies, photography and painting and installation based, very set oriented, theatrical, probably because of my architecture, but maybe that's why I did the architecture. I think I was sort of disappointed when I found out architecture was supposed to be practical. This is a return, but also sort of something I feel is really called upon right now with the world in this total mess. So I'm thinking a lot about how we got here.
And also, I think it's so relevant right now because we have entered this new phase in our culture and civilization where many functions are being replaced by their virtual counterparts, like education, for example. And as a person who's working also in the realm of education, I think you have a hunch about the future of these things, and you're also one of the people who sets the tone for these activities, for how they will take place, how they will be processed, etc. And I think that side of you is also very important in that sense.
Well, I think my pedagogic practice is important. I don't know if I'm actually setting the tone. I think I'm in dialogue with the future, and that has been something that I've been at the School of the Art Institute for 14 years. I taught before that, but there, because the students are dedicated, it's an art school. Before that, I never taught at an art school. I taught at several polytechs. And so the orientation when you get to an art school that's dedicated to conceptual art, a conceptual practice, and contemporary practice with young people who, in that context, were at the cutting edge. So the school was not oriented, and still is not, towards digital media. They're finally sort of realizing, oops, and, you know, do or die. But I think the students that would choose me and who I've been in dialogue with were themselves out of the mainstream within the contemporary practices that were being done at the Art Institute. So I think because of that, I was in a very special culture where we were in a little bubble. I mean, me and them for this whole 14 years. And where I would say, I think it's going to go this way, but I'm not sure, but you can help you do it, and I'll give you some ideas, but you have to fulfill it. So the process, my program that I developed was called Experimental 3D. It still is. And it has always been a collaborative practice in which I was trying, and that's what my artwork, you can really see it in this most recent work, was about tying the past into the future. And so not just the ancient past, but the whole lineage. So because that's how I was always thinking of it. And so I think that is what affected my students, right? Yeah.
It's also how culture takes place in our minds, like different layers from different periods. They overlap, they just become deconstructed, reconstructed, revisited, reinterpreted. So it's almost a visual representation of that process, mental process. And you can navigate in a labyrinth. In most of your works, you can navigate these different lines of thought, lines of, cultural paradigms in a way. And that's very exciting.
They're always shifting. So that's the idea of historiography, the study of history itself. So I think one of the things that's happening now, I don't know if it's so powerful outside of the United States, but the Black Lives Matter movement is about opening up repressed histories and bringing those to the foreground. So that's also for me about a total revisioning of the trajectory, and that's what I was trying to do with this show, or thinking. I don't know if I was trying to do it. It was what I've been thinking about. Like, and so I think we're at a paradigm shift, both because of these technologies, right, which since the 90s have speeded up so crazily and is finally going into the mainstream, also sped up by the COVID quarantines, international, right, where it's like, well, we told you so, right? And at the same time, a cultural broadening in terms of people of color who have been excluded from the historical trajectories, right? From history.
The art historical canon is in itself very white and patriarchal, isn't it? And revisiting all those lineages, all those paradigms from today's, let's say, restless social dynamics it makes a lot of sense, I guess.
Oh, I like seeing Lake Duck over there, because Lake Duck is actually my robot. That's sort of when I was recording this is actually the background is a grab. It's a little screen grab from the Ruins is an exhibition at Bitforms Gallery in New York, right? It's open now, and it opened a week ago, and it'll be open till November 1st. And at the same time, Ars Electronica, for their festival this year, wanted to make this idea of remote sites, and had a Mozilla Hubs was the core of that. And I made a remote site of of this show. And when I did it, what I realized was that the piece was the installation in the gallery and the Mozilla. That together, this was a mixed reality, as you were just saying, which is not just our current reality from the COVID, right? But will probably remain, we all were saying it was inevitable, and now finally it sped that up and anchored it, and I think it's a different way of living. So actually, when I did this movie, I wanted, when you're in Mozilla Hubs, you can only see through, it's a cyborg, meaning your head is a GoPro camera, and you can film only what your head is looking at. So in order to, I wanted to film a robot in there, so I opened up the site on my phone, which is very inadequate for the processing power. I couldn't do much, and because of that, my normal me is my name, but it gave me a default robot named Lake Duck, and so I threw Lake Duck in there, and I couldn't change the name or the avatar because the phone is so slow in the processing. So that's like my avatar's avatar. That's Claudia, the robot's avatar, Lake Duck, the cute little robot. So that's why if I stand right here, like I can be Lake Duck. That's my avatar's, so that's like me 3 times removed.
Yeah, I also find this, like, looking at yourself all the time on Zoom or on other teleconferences is also a weird experience, isn't it?
That's why the Mozilla robot experiences becomes more fun. But also, one of the things you can do in Mozilla is you can actually bring your camera in, so your FaceTime or whatever. So you can be in there as a talking head and have your robot running around and all that at the same time. And that, I don't know why, but I give people tours in this who are like you, living in another in a remote site. And we're all remote sites now. That's what's cool about it. And when we do that, and like I've been giving tours to grown-up people in the art world who have technology phobias, and so I like show them, they're very scared to go in there, and then I like say, just click that, and then I walk them through like how to use the little share button up here and all those things, and show them how you can bring yourself in, and you can draw, and you can change your robot body and take pictures, and they go crazy. They love it. And there's a lot of giggling and delight that goes on. And people stay there for 2.5 hours until their memory has crashed their computer. Because of the mixed reality, somehow the promise and the idea that there's an ephemeral us up there in the clouds and down here on Earth at the same time is magical, right? That's this idea about liminality.
Actually, we also have a slight time lapse in between our talking and its reflection on the screen, for instance, which is also mesmerizing to me. At these first experiments the artists did back in the 50s, the 60s with satellite communication, for instance, these were the basics of that. Mesmerizing feeling of being there and here at the same time, right?
Yes, the simultaneity remains. It has to do with, I mean, obviously it has to do with constructions about heaven and life after death. I mean, duh, right? And the idea of the overused term liminal, anthropological term, which is used so much, it's embarrassing, but I must say it again, because this is about liminality, right? That we're in this halfway zone going back and forth. It's like Star Trek, like beam me up. And that is so delightful to people, right? This promise about that you don't need your body, maybe.
It's actually also, I think, as you said correctly, it's about immortality, as if you can store your consciousness in some hard drive. And we all have this fantasy, don't we? I mean, we had all these movies in the 80s where some guy remained stuck in a computer.
Sorry for that. Yeah, but you know what? Still, Silicon Valley moguls still have a tendency to believe this. I think it's a guy thing. It has to do with, master of the universe idea. And
the Epic of Gilgamesh, in a way.
Yes.
That still survives, it seems. By the way, I also want to address this issue of boundaries. When we think about your exhibition, The Ruins is actually taking place in the gallery, but it has its extension on Mozilla. And it's so hard, actually, to think of the two separately, as if the virtual version of the exhibition and the physical one are not separable. So the exhibition structure itself is a great metaphor of how our physical and digital realities are now intertwined.
Well, it's even more so because the Ruins actually I worked on this work for 2 years, and initially I was thinking about it as a play with, I was interested in the idea that with modernism began copyright, and that we were talking about when photography was introduced, we had copyright, the multiplication of the image, and that we were now in another paradigm, shift again. And as we've just been talking about, the digital paradigm, rather than being material and physical and industrial production connected, like photography, is ephemeral, right? It's based on the idea of the computer model and data, all ephemeral, with which we take this scientific data and reconstruct the image, which is computer graphics. And I was interested in looking at modernist painters because they were the ones who, were the first copyrighted material, and they were also going abstract and non-representational because they were no longer they were separating themselves from the job of photography. And then somehow it comes back again in this mixed reality, which is virtual reality anyway, which is a hybrid of perspective, mathematical perspective through a virtual camera lens. So this is the original project. And then when COVID and the Black Lives Matter 2 blew up, I was also interested in several things. One of them, which you can't hear on here, but the central piece of the Ruins exhibition, I brought in those Matisse simulations or Matisse Meditations. They're not simulating it at all. You have to know art history to remember that this might be a Matisse, because I use the compositional structure. But I brought in this idea of two things, like a collapse and also of thinking about failed utopias, which modernism was one of them. So I made a labyrinth, and then I made the Ruins Labyrinth, was actually inspired by Hito Sterl's idea of the poor image as a site where you could artists could steal copyright in the very low resolution image, and the world of imagery can be mashed up, right? So I decided I was going to make low resolution polygon models because that's what a game world does. And repaint, really copying them, as I wasn't copying in the Matisses that you see behind me. And there's another one in the lobby there. And the sculpture, which is also CNC milled, but it's actually a low-res poly model. So I built these real copies, actually copying, because I was a painter and I have skill, you know, their brush strokes and their colors and all that. And I made them very low resolution polygon models. And then I also appropriated, I did about 7 editions last year where I don't know why I did this. It was like a few months of madness on my part, but I sold my copyrights for like 8 works for little money for 10 years for edition houses who never sell anything more than like 1 of them. And so I reappropriated my own copyright. And then I was thinking about this as bringing down Picasso and Matisse, because I basically just did low res of Picasso and Matisse. And then I was also looking at the failed patriarchies of
the ruins. I
yeah.
mean, the name of the exhibition is even implying that.
Right.
That we are dealing with the ruins of some utopia.
Right. So the central piece, which we can't hear in our virtual background over there behind me in Zoom, is actually a musical work and an audio work where I perform Thomas Jefferson, a letter on democracy to a revolutionary general, and I perform the Bauhaus Manifesto, the Gropius Bauhaus Manifesto, and then I perform Henry Ford, who has this crazy, had built what he thought of as a utopia on the Amazon River. It was a facsimile of a Detroit suburb, and it was actually a rubber factory in which he hired indigenous people to work, but also to become simulated Americans. They had to eat, it's so unbelievable when you hear this, but they had to eat hot dogs and hamburgers and donuts and French fries. And then they had to listen to documentaries about the World's Fair and life in America. And that was part of what and they had to work in the rubber factory. And it was a, disaster, and everybody ran away. And he actually did it several times. He kept trying over and over. And the last person is Jim Jones, who had an anti-communist cult in the 70s, right? And ultimately, they committed, this is where we get the expression, drank the Kool-Aid. It was paranoid, religious, anti-communist lunacy, and a commune. And at a certain point, they committed he had them all commit mass suicide. It was hundreds of people. And I took one. I
remember that story, actually. There was a very detailed documentary of it back in the day.
Yeah, it was like a giant thing. And I did one of his sermons called The Open Door, in which he's preaching. And I assume these voices. And then Ed Campion, who is the director of the Center for New Music and Audio Technology and an amazing composer, made a MIDI tool, the Ruins software, and composed that as music. So that is actually installed within the both environment, but it's actually for this 3-channel video where you're tracking through this game world that's a labyrinth from which you can't escape, and you're hearing this very spooky, because my voice is Thomas Jefferson and Gropius aren't so distorted, but the Jim Jones and Henry Ford's a kind of evil clown voice, and Jim Jones is like the devil. Yeah. So it's very spooky, the whole atmosphere, and dark. So, yeah.
Are we able to access the Mozilla here?
Yes, we can go into it. Oh, you mean like me go into it and we share screen?
No, we can share screen perhaps, and
we can try, because we'll see whether my computer, which is not my best computer, but it might be able to handle it. Let's see if I open that on a browser. Let me open it and let's see what happens.
Okay. And what really mesmerizes me about the ruins is also that you're also kind of attacking some aesthetic canons. You're making a mess out of them in a way, and all these coherences that we are accustomed to look for are actually not there. It's very disorienting, very confusing in that sense, which is great because life is more like that actually, and our experience of the visual world is more like that.
Wait a minute, I'm a little distracted now because I'm trying to open my.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to open it, and then I'm going to ask you to sort of repeat that. Let's see if it works. But wait, what were you saying? I'm making a mess out of it?
I mean, you are kind of deconstructing all these aesthetic canons as well. And the environments are disorienting, a bit confusing in that sense.
Well, I'm not actually, I don't think I work in such a intellectual way, to tell you the truth. Like I am articulate and I studied certain things, and my friends who are intellectuals such as you tell me you should really read this, it's related to your work, and then I do. And often I don't finish them because I spend so much time animating, because what I do is really labor intensive. And I also think I am a contemporary form of a painter. I make simulation versions of that. So I'm actually like a sort of dumb painter in a way. It's very intuitive the way I'm working. Like I think, oh, I'm gonna use this and it should sound spooky. And when I made the 3-channel, which we see on the side of it, right?
Yeah.
I thought, oh, I want it to be like a little steampunk, like it should be sort of steampunk. It should be sort of scary, but not that scary. and then I think, I don't know what that means when I do it. And I just sort of make it up as I go along. So, like, for example, in this piece, the Ruins, it's 50% cross dissolves, meaning time is always collapsing into another time which is collapsing. The image is not stable for that long. It's like out of every 30 seconds, 15 seconds are cross dissolved and 15 are solid. And I didn't think I was going to do that. I just kept trying different things, and I said, nah, that's not good. And then I did that, and I was like, that seems right. And then I thought, but I never think, why does it seem right? No, then I meet somebody who's smart and a writer, and they say, oh, the cross dissolves are very interesting. And I'm like, good to hear, I thought, oh, why did I do those cross dissolves? And then I put on my art historian hat and I said, oh, it means time is always that. But I don't think I'm doing that when I don't act critically, as you're saying, or deconstructive. Yeah.
And it's really interesting to hear, because you also have an art historian background. You also used to work as an art critic, and I think it really takes an effort to abandon that line of reasoning and just wearing the artist cap and acting intuitively, because it's not always easy. I mean,
yeah, I think you have to change hats.
Yeah.
And so I try to teach that also to my students, like just pop it out and then put on your other hat. And that's the one when we critique together. And I don't know, it is deconstructing. It's about deep reading. I don't believe in trying to illustrate theory, for example. So I'm not sure it's really conceptual art, but it's influenced by, I think we're in a moment that could not have existed without conceptual art, but it's not really, because it's more it's like allegory or symbolic uses of images that are informed by deep knowledge but not illustrating. And I think that could have happened without conceptual art, but it's something else.
I see your point, definitely. I mean, when we think of postmodernity, for instance, I think we are also way past that. We are at a place right now, we are at a limbo, in a sense, where we are trying to understand our motives once more with the newly available technologies and experimenting with them. Some things we do with technology are more similar to what more ancestral artists did, whereas other artists work with more conceptual tactics. So it's a very, very cosmopolitan art world nowadays.
So let's try. You can probably hear this peeping. That's like, let's see if we can. I want to share screen and let's see if the whole thing doesn't like freeze over. All right, so I want to do my Mozilla. So let's see, Google. So did it work?
It's loading. Yes. I see your screen.
All right. So one thing I want to do for a minute, but I'll wait till we get in there. So this is the where you behind me. That's actually the air. That's a skybox, and so you come into Bitforms with this glass, and you go into this little entry. And
is this the same gallery plan with Bitforms?
Yeah, this is a copy.
Okay.
And there's wallpaper everywhere, and the wallpaper is augmented, so it's hand painted, but it's actually not. The patterns are augmented trackables, and if you download Blip AR, I'll write it down.
Blip, BLIP, right?
Blip AR. You see it over here?
Yes.
So that's a free app, and I uploaded my a free augmented app. And actually, you can see messages, text-based work, and work patterns that are made from the heraldry of collapsed, failed empires, and from history up to now, and logos of corporations, and text, like messages, like there's transcend the pain of being in there, and different kinds of messages and abstract things that I call the flows of history. So the wallpaper in this whole thing is augmented and has these sort of hidden secret messages. And it looks like it's breaking up, like it looks very crappy. I don't think it's even animating, because I think it's, oh no, it's animating.
Yeah, I can see the animation, although it's slow.
Right, and it's very dirty because it's on the multiple platforms. The Zoom is very demanding, and so is this. It's sort of lagging it, but it seems to be still working. And now I'm going to go in.
Okay. So we urge our viewers to visit the exhibition directly also, right?
Well, if you're in New York, we are open till November 1st. And if you're in New York, it has normal gallery hours. There's only 6 people allowed in the gallery at once. Oh, here, let me turn down the audio for a minute. That's my audio work, and I will turn up the audio, but let me just, for now. It's not going down. It must be.
Are you trying to mute the background noise?
I made it softer.
Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. So anyway, these are, but if you're in New York, write to me and I'll give you a tour. If you're listening,
Sounds great.
Any friend of Ipek's is a friend of mine.
Wow.
And I'll meet you at
Namaste.
and I will
In
give
here.
Yes, in the real one. But they're both real in their own ways.
Yeah, exactly.
So they seem to be actually running. It's very wide angle in there, the camera, very distorted. This is actually a high resolution sculpture, but I took one of those low resolution knocked down to size polygon models because I actually used the high resolution one, which is, wait, let me go, which is the one that,
so in the gallery, we are supposed to see a physical object there, right?
yeah, that's a real sculpture. And it's actually this, oops. It's actually this bouquet over here.
Ah, okay. So all these images are actually interconnected.
Oh yeah, they're
right?
all, yeah, so I did a residency at Anderson Ranch and I milled this. And I milled it in a way that using walnut and resins and wood. So it was, I was sort of faking a handicraft look, and it does look like it was sort of whittled and very handicrafty, but it's actually the computer model for this. And that also, it's that thing. And I think of myself as sort of making cyborg hybrids a lot. So in these, I was thinking about that nature is always moving subtly and nothing is happening. It's like an extended moment that lasts forever in which nothing's happening, but everything's moving. The craft, this is a very crafty looking thing, but in here you get the low-res polygon model. And then here, there you see one of the Matisses. These are the appropriated, my own work where I appropriated the model. There you see a piece that was actually on Seditions with me playing with Cezanne. That's Phantom on the Tour. That's actually a Matisse still life low resolution model. There we have a red dawn. They're very pixelated. Sorry about that, folks.
No worries. We can also look at them from your website, some of them.
This is my favorite Picasso over here, the mandolin and the guitar.
Yeah, I love that too. That's amazing.
Yeah. So there's a lot, there's like it took me months. It was an act of complete insanity to do that. But anyway.
But it's also, I think, it's similar to the experience of those painters in a way.
How do you mean?
The experience of creating. They also had these long periods of isolation.
Yeah.
Like seclusion.
Well, frankly, it was brought on by Trump. I mean, this was before I started this work before COVID and Black Lives too, and all the killing of the Black folks by police. Although that was going on for several years, but the shade going up, the inability to ignore it. And I started doing these things because I couldn't stand Trumplandia anymore. It was about a retreat and wanting to make a contemplative space. And I work, I'm on sabbatical now. But for 3 years before that, I was on a dispensation for the dean where I only had to work one semester, but I worked a lot. So I could leave school and go into isolation. And that was what I did with this stuff, is that it was about a total retreat.
It also has a meditative quality to it.
I hope so. That's what I try. And by the way, we're listening to let me turn it, they're pretty loud. We must be standing. Let me make it a little louder.
Okay.
seems like it's not responding to the controls because I think it's so screwed by Zoom.
Yeah,
It's
probably.
like,
We can maybe try Ars Electronica's website or some video excerpts.
well, we could go onto my website if you want to talk about the stuff that you have in there. We could say that we can stop there.
Sure, and we can also look at other works of yours.
So what do you want? Wait, let me turn it off. Let me shut it down because it's very noisy.
Returning to the Web Biennial, actually, it would be good to talk about the wallpapers, AR wallpapers and ceramics. We are showing that one, plus Alice Unchained.
All right, which I'm going to go to my site now, so I'm going to share another site. So what do you want to begin with? Both of them come from the same body work, really. So I'll just,
maybe we start with Alice, which is earlier, which is more recent.
They're all simultaneous, actually.
Oh, okay. I thought the ceramics were older. I guessed so.
No, they're everything sort of happened over a period of 5 years. But wait a minute, let's share this thing.
Okay.
So you got it?
Yeah. Looks good.
So, let's see.
And Alice is a trilogy, basically, and there you collaborate with Edmund and a dancer, right?
Yeah.
A choreographer.
No, it was like I started working with the Alice series. I think it was 6 years ago or 7. And it started as performance and augmented dishes in which they were performing eating and insanity. And I made a banquet that was a kind of performance. And, oh wait, let's look at it. See, where is it? There it is. See, it's down there. It was 2013.
It's yeah. I know that work. Yeah, amazing.
Wait, why am I not able to click? Please. Something is, I think I'm somehow inside of Zoom. Wait a minute. Go out of here.
Or maybe you're just sharing the main page.
Wait a minute. Maybe, but let's try not to. Okay. Let's see. The thing is that since I have to teach doing technology, the fact that it fails and I have to keep talking is sort of my life.
Yeah,
so it's hard
media artists. Yeah, media artists' faith in a way.
Yeah. How's that? So for this thing, when Augmented was invented, I was invited to do an edition of ceramics. And actually, and I did this thing called New Mort, where you looked with this app. Let's see. That was the banquet. Well, that's cute. That was the event. So as this is maybe easier to see, I want to see how far we can go. Oh, that's good too.
So the food in the dishes is actually visible through the smartphones, right?
Right. So this thing, does it go backwards? Or are we just going endlessly forwards? Let's go backwards. Let's do this one where we can see a little bit what you see, right? So I did an addition, and it's this pattern, an abstract pattern, which is actually like a QR code. And when you look through the app, you see this naked woman sort of touching herself very softly and rolling around. You only see her body. And those are like cockroaches that are rolling around, that are all walking around on her. And that was the piece. And I was invited to make by Ellen Sandor, who's a collector of my work, and she said, let's make a party and invite people, and the dishes, we can serve on the dishes and give everyone a nap. And the company that produced it said, not really, you can have 6. And Ellen said, what am I going to do with 6 dishes? And I said, well, we'll do a performance piece. And she said, what's the piece? And I said, 6 Alices. I mean, it just popped into my head. And so that started this idea, because I was interested in the Alice as a place of inverted reason. So there was very much the way I work, which is the real Lewis Carroll story is about reason flipped over.
Yeah.
And so I took Lewis Carroll, a part of the story, and I used plagiarism software made by a friend of mine, and I spammed it. I plagiarized it like 20 times over until the story became a crazy story about Alice and her friend who fell in love and had children, and then Alice had an affair, and then they got back together again, and it was like queer Alice's. So I worked with my students. I work with a lot of performers, and so we have a mixed group of students of all gender identification, and we performed eating the imaginary food, and we made this banquet at the Arts Club, and that was the beginning, where we ate giant mushrooms and tiny pigeons. So it was, and we ate flower salad, and that was like that. So anyway, can we get out of here? Oh, we got out of here even. So here we are. That was the beginning of Alice. And when augmented, and I was using augmented, so when VR came online, and I'm always translating into platforms. Basically, the major VR for me is 3D animation, which is this hybrid, like I was talking about, of a simulation of a camera and perspective in an XYZ liminal space. And that I fell in love with when I went to a Toy Story 1 pre-release at the Berlin Film Festival in 1994. And I went bananas, and I taught, I had to know it, and I became obsessed. And so when all of these new platforms were introduced, it became more interesting for me as an idea of mixing these different levels of reality. And that's what you showed, right? So the idea of the mixed reality, the waiting room, where you have pattern. Well, let me advance from that, because then I did the Alice's. I'll just go in order.
Okay.
So in 2014, I was a resident at IBEAM, and that's good. And I did this opera, which was a hybrid of a fashion show and can I stop this? Please stop. I don't want. Oh, good. So I did a fashion show performance, and I made these wearables where you could see, again, working with Alice, the scrambled, crazy text about love and mixed gender. And I made these were all trackables. They were random patterns generated both by computer and me, because computer is not random enough. So I had to fool around with them a little. And we had performers wearing them, and see, there they are. And that's me when I was young.
Yeah. Can you experience a different layer using a smartphone? So there you go.
On the stage, we were performing, but we had invited people who had the tablets on the stage, who were basically artist friends and people like president of my school, for example, and writer friends who were more involved in media art. And they were the audience. And then we had a guy running around filming. It was then streamed on big screens around. So it was very meta media, and you could see what they saw. That's actually my friend Carla Ganis, who's a wonderful artist and still my dear friend who I was just talking to before we started here. And they filmed, and then there was a film made of that. And so what I did in the thing, let's go back. And these are all very well-known performance artists. Wait, so there you also see, and those patterns, hopefully we can now go back to the top again. Oh yes, see, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, let's go here. So that those became the beginning of Alice, and I took those very same patterns, and when VR came about, let's see if we can go through here. Oh, that's a foreign weird. Is that
I accessed it today, actually, the flower matrix.
It was just a moment of code popping on. So that is, I took the same patterns that were in the Alice World patterns, and I made wallpapers from them, and I also made a VR world, which was the beginning of it, which was called the Flower Matrix. That was the crazy garden of Alice, and as a matrix. That was the first labyrinth that and it was a game, and it was on Oculus, and then I made a surround for it. So this, for example,
this is in the gallery space, right? The wallpaper is in the gallery space.
Yes. So this was a pod, but it's really like a waiting room. So this was done at Carnegie Mellon, and Ed, this is where we started working with the voices as musical instruments that were very complex, mixed with software that he made for it. And we also worked with his wife, Danielle Di Gratola, who's the beautiful cello you hear in these things. And Danielle also had a big impact because she was a very renowned cellist who developed extremely bad allergies. So she couldn't actually go out in public anymore. She still can't. And she's the girl in the bubble. So that was where I also got interested in developing these virtual worlds for her to perform in. So it was like a virtual chamber music, right? And there I began also with the live performers and the motion capture. I worked with Christina Isabel, who's also a performer. I mean, we have worked together over years, but it's really more focusing on the collaboration with Center for New Music and Audio Technology, with Ed and Danielle, and now my various young friends, because Ed started a program in multimedia. It's like a Unity-based, VR-oriented sub-program within the famous Berklee Composition New Music PhD program. And
amazing.
So, yeah, it is sort of amazing. And this is the second year. And various people who I've worked with, I introduced to Ed, and they're like the first generation getting their doctorates with this stuff. So this was a waiting room that was at Carnegie Mellon Center for Contemporary Art. And Ed composed, and here are the little on a rolling robot sort of augmented things. So while you're waiting for the headset, of which there was only one, as is true in most institutions, which was this thing hanging in the middle, you could run around and explore everything, and all of these are augmented. And that's some of the ceramics that you have too, right? So the floor covering is actually several different patterns that are flipped. And here, this is the New Mort dish, the naked lady with her bugs on her, inspired by surrealism. And these were the ceramics. These are actually also ceramics that you were showing and featuring, are also these elements here in the wallpaper. So if we actually, right.
So everything is so deeply interconnected, basically.
Yeah. So that was the flower matrix, and I would like to, let's see if we can go back, because Can we go back?
Maybe
Wait.
you hit escape, yeah.
Yeah, I do have to. All right, so I want to show you a little bit of the flower matrix. We're not there. We want to go to the home page. So the flower matrix.
Yay.
Yeah. Let's go here. Is it going to be fine? It's also, it's too much pixelization. We're better seeing it smaller.
Okay.
And that's Danielle. And my voices you'll hear too.
Yeah, it's almost spooky, really.
They're all sort of spooky.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to stop it because it's sort of loud. But what you also see is, in addition to the flower matrix, the Alice patterns, which is the sky and the ground, and they're all augmented, I also started using emojis in these strobing patterns, which were symbols of power, money, and addiction, and corporate symbols, and symbols, computer language, and all this mixed in this sort of, I thought of it like Times Square casino capital. I mean, I'm a native New Yorker, so for 7 years I had my studio on Times Square, actually.
Wow.
This was it as it is installed. It's also a 3-channel work. Let's see. I'm not going to stay on there, but they're meant to be like this.
Yeah.
And then you wanted me to show the other one, which is Alice Unchained.
Yeah, and actually, when you look at these, you think of yourself as the consumer, the individual consumer, as the Alice in Wonderland, because we are surrounded by these screens, advertising, pop-up materials online.
Yes, totally. Wait, I'm looking for, where's the Alice Unchained? Oh, here she is. I completely feel that. It's like nauseating, right?
Yeah.
We are trapped in this panopticon of, it's also the internet.
Yeah.
So part of why I had Walter Gropius, The Failure of the Bauhaus, was these various utopias of industrialization, which includes, in my age group, it was the utopia of television, which transformed into the utopia of the internet, which has also brought us to disinformation and Twitter Trumplandia. You know, Trumpland's Twitterdom. And so we're talking about failures of many projects that started at probably with modernism. And now they really aren't working at all anymore. But in the case of America, it started with the founding of America, which was the Enlightenment, which was the sort of the Enlightenment fed into the Romantic period. And we have all this idea of nature, which was constructed as a idea. And on the other hand, industrialization and these beliefs that industrialization was either the enemy or utopia. And I think that idea of industrialization and media and all these things as utopia now brought us climate crisis and oppression and authoritarianism. And so that's our problem right now in the world.
I mean, all technologies, I think, are like a double sword. On the one hand, they make life better in a way. Like the same technology can save lives, and the same technology can be used for oppression, as you say, or to kill people. So I think approaching it cautiously and critically is what we are responsible about.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe we could tie it up now, because are we talking too
Sure.
long?
No, no, don't worry. It's I think it all comes down to how we will configure our relationship to
Oh,
technology from this point on, probably.
yeah, I agree. And that's what this paradigm shift is. Several things. It's how we will deal with each other. Like the immigration crisis worldwide, which comes from the climate crisis and the energy crisis, forces people to think of the world in a more global way, which also the climate crisis does. Like, it doesn't do any good if France changes things, if we here or China or wherever are pouring toxins into the atmosphere. So we have to start thinking about the humans more collectively, or we're going to just destroy the world. So, and COVID is that expression, right?
And we should not perhaps let technology turn us into those remote points, but should instead bring us closer together.
Yes, and so here we are. That's why we're having fun doing this.
Yeah, indeed.
So this is the story of a wrestler and a ballerina, Christina Isabel, and Isias Velasquez, who was a professional wrestler who was my trainer, which I no longer have because he's in Chicago and I'm here. But they live in the same body, and I made a hybrid language that was this kind of morphing between male and femaling, the Donna Haraway idea of the breakdown. I'm always trying to merge things that are paradoxical into one thing. I think that's very consistent in everything. So this is short, so we could see actually the gameplay inside the VR world. This is actually a Vive world, so
Maybe you can turn on the sound a bit.
turn it down?
No, to the contrary, actually.
Turn it up?
Yeah, better. This also makes me think about how the capitalist society thinks of all the available surfaces as a surface for advertising.
Yeah.
Even human body.
Right.
And
it's Times Square.
Yeah, exactly. And also these like flower shapes covered with all kinds of messages and logos. How we leave our imprint on nature, and all kinds of ideas around the human imprint, actually, on ecology, on the planet. You can think.
Right. Yeah. What were you saying? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Even urban architecture itself is really like a new form of organism, more rectangular, more geometrical form of organism.
Well, supposedly, I mean, I think actually that the cyborg is humans because we're, you know, supplemented by our computers. As we know, if you're me and you're addicted and you never, you know, you're addicted to this thing and
Yeah.
all of them. Like when I go to bed at night, I have always my 2 tablets, a big one and a medium one, and the baby one, because they all have different functions. And if I don't have them at my little bedside table, and then I wear a mask to keep the blue light out.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm a cyborg.
And I'm now using these glasses to reduce the effect of the blue light.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'll, you know, have some eye problems.
Yeah.
And it's a huge problem for everyone, actually.
Yeah. So I think we're all going to get brain tumors unless we take care. I'm seriously.
And it's also about multitasking. We multitask a lot, and we are not supposed to.
Right. And that's also the rhizomatic structure, right, of everything. Yeah, I found that, like, I'm finally able to decompress because the run-up of, wait, let's see. So is this going to play? Yes. Because I work in, like, 5 mediums. So for this show, I made augmented wallpaper. I made a Mozilla site. I made different kind audio, an audio install, and several forms of animation, including the reason why those things look so great in the real world is they are projected with laser projectors on stretched screen material, so they are so uncanny. I mean, that's a medium in itself.
Definitely.
Just being able to figure out a barcode projector takes a week. We finally got them working. A week, you know, like we had to redo them several times. So wait, I want to, let's see, do we have the dishes in here? Yeah. So there, these are this is going with the idea of this morph between the natural, I'm very interested in craft meeting technology. So I collaborate very often with craftspeople, and these dishes are hand-thrown paper porcelain, very delicate, by Kimmy Kim, who is an amazing Korean potter. And we actually, these were in the Korean Ceramics Biennial, and they won a prize.
Amazing.
Which, yeah. And they asked me, do you want to apply again? I was like, I don't think so. Because, I mean, a lot of these are also my travels. I'm learning a lot, and I'm collaborating with people from different parts of art. So this, what you were saying, that my work is somehow traveling through art history and trying to make hybrids with other forms from other times. So like collaborating with Kimmy was fantastic. So these are there we have plates and this very claustrophobic kind of weird space. And that's what you can see on the plates when you're looking through the tablets, the different animations. And so yes, the flowers from the flower matrix are on all of these square plates. And now I have messages, you know, I keep building a different vocabulary. That's what's on the plate to the right. So I have a kind of database of messages that are all dealing with what you're saying, like collapsed empires, symbols of capitalism, addiction, but also warnings and human cries for help. Help me get out of here. I think right now we realize, I mean, now we know that we got to get out, we got to find another way.
And we have these really pleasant images all around us that are actually hiding another layer of meaning behind them, which is often more tragic or more problematic than it seems. That metaphor is also very powerful, I think.
I think that's why what you said earlier, all my work is melancholy, and the music really brings it there. There's some, I mean, the music, like with Danielle, what was amazing with the flower, did we do that with the flower? No, it was with the Alice's. That's the last one. That's the last in the whole series. And what she did is she improvised in the virtual space with her cello. I mean,
amazing.
Yeah. So she looked in there, and she looked at projections of it, and then she went in there, and we were all together, and we motion captured her. And the character in the big cello robot, but who is actually her playing, that's in one of those. So that's her, the girl in the bubble. But improvising the work with the work in the virtual space, which is this lonely, strange space because of the way it maps perspective, and it's a cyborg, it's an ephemeral construction based on data. So it's this eerie mathematical disembodied feeling that you have when you're in those spaces.
Yeah, and sometimes we cannot come back from them. Depending on the context. I mean, sometimes we remain stuck in those like ephemeral limbos.
Yeah, I think we have been stuck. Wait, shall I stop sharing and go back so we could see each other?
Okay. And we can maybe wrap things up a bit.
Yeah. So I think we have been stuck, and part of the horror of this moment is realizing what a mess we made of things.
And when we remained stuck with ourselves, basically, we realized a lot of bad decisions, both individually and socially, I think.
Yeah. And so I find, like, I'm 65 and...
Oh, don't say that out loud. You don't look that.
But it's like my students, you young folks will have to build the other world.
Yeah, and
I hope I can cheerlead you all on and offer advice, but I can't go out there that much because I'll get COVID. And it's serious when you're old.
Yeah. I mean, it's really bad also here in Turkey, and it's now hitting young people more harshly, actually, because they are out there. We have lots of 30 plus, 40 plus people in hospitals, and it's really serious. But I think, okay, digital technology is helping advertisers get to us even in our bed, but it also helps us connect as we are doing right now. And the Web Biennial was also thought of as something to build this kind of solidarity among artists and cultural professionals, because they were some of the most fragile professions all around the world, and they were hit really hard. Performers especially were hit really hard.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we maintain solidarity globally, and be aware of what's going on in other parts of the world in that sense.
I find that's happening, don't you?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think I made so many, friends all over the world through the past 6 months by doing projects with people in London, Berlin, Istanbul. I don't even remember how many at this point. And we really bonded. And it's sort of, oh yeah, in Toronto, all over. And it's sort of unbelievable, some of them that we never met. Although, we know what we look like and we do all kinds of things and have been through a lot of also anxiety and intense emotional upheaval and all that. So it works.
Yeah, it works.
But that's us. Do you think that the other people are experiencing that? At the same time, Trumpism is about, making tribes that are closing down. There's like the anti-force.
Yeah, I think social media is again a double sword. It can foster solidarity and humanism, or it can foster hatred and isolation, depending on what you do with it. And I think it would be great if we could, make sure our societies have more control over some decisions of these social media companies, because they sometimes promote certain bad actions because they are like full of advertising revenue.
Well, they might be more responsive than the U.S. government will be. You might get more response. I don't know about Facebook, but who owns Instagram and is, a platform I traffic a lot. So we'll see.
Yeah, and civil society, I think, is building up really fast in the world of social media, and I hope they have a much stronger say in the future.
Let's be hopeful. We'll see what happens in November.
Don't look behind you. The robot is there.
Yeah, I know. Hey, dear.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, right. Okay, this was wonderful.
Yeah, I enjoyed every single moment of it. Claudia, that was great. And I wish you all the best with the show. And for those of you who happen to be in New York, please visit Bitform's gallery until November 1st to experience Claudia's new exhibition, The Ruins. And don't forget to visit our website, webbiennial.com, where you can also experience other works in addition to Claudia's works. And we are also we are publishing these talks on our YouTube channel, and of course you can access them there. And thank you so much, Claudia, for your time, for your energy, and the beautiful person that you are. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, to share thoughts with you, and hope to see you soon in the nearest future.
Okay, we could cut. So I want to tell you, we were lucky that it was the internet was sort of cooperative with us at the moment.
Yeah, even though you said the T word so many times.
Am I not allowed? Is it going to get audited now?
I mean, they could have cut the internet down, but they didn't.
Oh, yeah, right. But you know what? I think at this point, you can still say it in America. We'll see what happens after November. But we were lucky with the internet, because the last time I spoke to you, there was so much lag that it was hard to communicate, right? It was
Exactly. Yeah, tonight was somehow lucky, and it was clean cut, right?
We could even stream Mozilla Hubs and video. Amazing. So anyway, all right, so cut it down. I know you're going to cut So cut it up.
Thank you very much, Claudia.
And talk to you soon. I'm sure we'll be talking soon because we'll look at this together. All right?
Definitely, definitely.
Oh.
Very big hug from
Yes.
Turkey, from this side of the Atlantic. And again, to our viewers, thank you very much for watching us. As we are talking live now, you'll be seeing it afterwards, but I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.